Messi. Surging forward with real menace here. Brilliant from Messi. Oh, what a goal that is!
Hey everyone, and welcome again to another episode of the Bola Show. It's me, Elvin, here on Q today, and as usual, with me I have my two co-hosts for this pod, Bala and Steven. So, hello, Bala. How's it going, man?
Thank you, Elvin, for introducing me back to our show again. It's been raining since morning, and hopefully have a better climate in Sentosa. Steven, is it?
Not so much better climate here. Same as well. It's been raining the whole day. But you know what? We kind of need the rain right now because the weather has been scorching hot also for the past couple of days. So it's all good so far. Yep. So guys, basically this week's episode, we'll be doing our first ever book review podcast. And well, for that, we got a guest all the way from the UK. But my question for you, Elvin, when was the first time ever you tasted Red Bull?
First time, wow. Okay, I guess maybe I guess maybe about 15 years back, perhaps.
15 years back.
Yeah.
Man.
And one thing about Red Bull that I remember is the can. The can is like super hard, you know, like it's a very solid kind of can. That's what I could remember from it. Yeah, it's not that regular aluminum cans. Yeah.
Yep. and of course, you know, speaking of superb hard and all that, this week we're going to talk about a football team that has been on the rise for the past couple of years. For the good or wrong reason, I don't know. But, you know, it doesn't seem to rub on everyone's shoulder that well. But for that, we're going to have our guest of the day, all the way from the UK, Karan. Welcome to the Bola Show.
Hi guys, good to be on. Obviously very excited to be on here, and thank you for having me on. Happy to talk about my book.
Yes. And I'm really excited to know more about your book. So let's go to the first question, Bala. What say you?
Yes, Steven, of course. I'm very excited of our new guest talking about the book. Actually, just for curiosity-wise, what actually prompted you to write a book of a Red Bull in the football?
I would say the first time I wanted to write about Red Bull write a book about Red Bull was when they played Mainz in November last year in 2019. It was in the current season, which November feels like a long time ago because of the lockdown and all that. But they beat Mainz 8-0. And Timo Werner, who moved to Chelsea today, scored a hat-trick and provided a hat-trick of assists. What interested me about them was that they were really good, right? That's putting it lightly. When they were winning 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, they were just relentless. They were happy to go behind the ball, chase the man down, press as hard as they can, and keep scoring goals. And it's no surprise that they scored 8 goals. They took their chances very well. And, you know, that game was like the perfect embodiment of Red Bull in football and Julian Nagelsmann's football. So that's what impressed me about them. And obviously people hate Red Bull and their involvement in football. They hate Leipzig, they hate Salzburg. But while that is true, I think everyone can agree that they play some of the most exciting football in Europe. You know, 1 month after that game between Leipzig and Mainz, Salzburg played against Liverpool in the Champions League. They lost 2-0 at home, sadly, and they didn't qualify for the round of 16, but they were very good once again. It was a similar style, same high pressing, same speed, same energy. And, you know, those two games, I would say, really stood out. And one thing about that Salzburg game was that they had such a diverse team. They had players from Japan. Minamino was playing for them at the time. Norway, there was Haaland, who was playing for them at the time. There was players from Zambia, Patson Daka and Inoki Mwepu. So it was a very diverse team, while they had local Austrian talent as well. So I think a lot of those things came to mind. And between both Leipzig and Salzburg, they both have a very young team, both have very young managers. So, you know, while people say that they should not be in football, they should not be, or, you know, companies like that should not be able to invest so easily and change the game so vastly, I would say that everyone can agree that they are entertaining. They are doing a lot of good things in football as well. And personally, I don't endorse them. I don't really like their presence in football, but it's easy for me to admit that they are very entertaining.
Yep. Yeah, we're gonna go through that very complicated circumstances of Red Bull and football a much bit later. But, I just wanted to know that at what stage did Red Bull decided to get involved in football? Because for the most part, I thought, the drink, it sort of gel well with motorsport and extreme sport. And I mean, at which stage they decided that, they want to take their chances in football?
So it's hard to say when exactly they must have thought, but Red Bull got involved with Salzburg in 2005. Obviously, Red Bull is an Austrian company. They have an Austrian co-founder in Dietrich Mateschitz. He founded the company in the 1980s along with a Thai businessman. At the time, it was called Krating Daeng, which is Thai for Red Bull or Red Gore. So he started in the 1980s, in 1987, and they got into other sports in 1990s with Formula One, with extreme sports, with winter sports, because Austria is so popular with that sort of thing. They like winter sports. If you look at some of the best athletes in their history, most of them will be snowboarders or anyone related to skiing or anything like that. There's Niki Lauda from F1, but that's their sort of MO. But in 2005, obviously Austria Salzburg was a club before Red Bull took over. And given that Red Bull and Austria Salzburg were in the same city of Salzburg, and Dietrich Mateschitz was a local man from Salzburg, it must have come naturally to him that he should invest in his local football club. And at the time, Austria Salzburg were a struggling club. They didn't have much money. They were probably going to go bankrupt very soon. So, it seemed like a reasonable investment to make. It didn't cost them too much, and it was something they were investing in for their local community. Obviously, they saw the success of that. They got a bit of backlash. 1 year later, they invested in New York in 2006. The Metro Stars became the New York Red Bulls, and then 1 year later, they went to Brazil and founded Red Bull Brazil, and then 2009 there was Leipzig, and now there's Bragantino in Brazil in 2019. So, football is the world's most popular sport. So, obviously, as Red Bull want to grow themselves, grow their brand, it seemed normal for them to start in football by investing locally.
And just wanted to know another thing about this. What would be Red Bull's global strategy? Because you look at the way they're expanding and very heavy on emphasis on branding. Are they like trying to turn this into a football franchise or something? Like those fast food franchises out there, so to speak. Those McDonald's, KFCs, and all that. Or in the long run, I mean, do you know? Is this what they have in mind? And do you have any idea if they have set their sails on any club in Asia, perhaps?
Well, I wouldn't there's the City Football Group, which is similar to them, and they have a much larger portfolio. They have clubs in 6 continents and also in 5. I think they don't have a club in Africa, but they have at least 5 continents. So I wouldn't say that Red Bull would become like them. It's not like that, because they have a club in North America, they have a club in South America, and they have 2 clubs in Europe. And I think they won't go beyond that. I don't think they'll start up another European club, or they get involved in another European club, because UEFA laws become complicated with regards to FFP and conflict of interests. There was already a problem with Salzburg and Leipzig when they both qualified for European competition. So I think Europe is off the table.
Mm-hmm.
There have been rumors that they were interested in clubs in Denmark and Portugal and England, but I think it's very unlikely. Maybe they'll start a developmental club somewhere, but beyond that, I can't see anything happening. When they started Red Bull, the New York Red Bulls, they saw the thing about Red Bull is that whenever they decide to invest in a club, they have to get adequate returns from their investment. So there has to be a high amount of potential. With regards to New York in 2006, obviously they recognized that MLS was a growing market. Soccer in America was becoming very popular, so they decided to go and start up an MLS club, or get involved with an MLS club. When they decided to go to Brazil, obviously you don't have to say much about Brazil. Brazil is such a big mine for talent. There's always 3 or 4 players coming out each year who will probably go on and play for a big club in Europe. So obviously they decided Brazil was a good investment for that reason. And obviously Salzburg and Leipzig, 2 very popular clubs in Europe. So there has to be an adequate return for them. With regards to your question about Asia, I don't think that they will invest in a club in Asia. Ralph Rangnick spoke about it in 2019. He said that China seems like a good market, but they won't get much out of it. They'll get a bit of economic gain, but talent-wise, he can't see it happening. So I don't think that Asia is a good market for them in the future. Red Bull, as I said earlier, Red Bull was formed originally in Thailand. So I think maybe they'll do some academy sort of thing for youngsters, for a bit of a talent identification thing where they try to pick up the best Asian talent and move them to the European clubs. But I don't think that they'll invest full on in a club. It seems very unlikely, from my opinion, anyways.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
And of course, you mentioned earlier, when Red Bulls made their presence in football, they weren't really welcome with open arms, and particularly in Austria, Germany, where there's been somewhat of a resistance from a lot of people within the football fraternity about their presence in football. You want to share a little bit more on this?
Oh, I could go on forever about this. I could write another whole book. Austria, obviously, they started in 2005, and Austria Salzburg, as I mentioned, they were a struggling club. They didn't have much money, and they needed investment. So when the rumors came out that Red Bull were going to invest in Austria Salzburg, it was mostly welcomed. People liked it. They said that they'll have a failing club, because at the time people believed that they were going to be just a sponsor. It's common in Austria for clubs to change their names. In the past, even Austria Salzburg in 1994, when they reached the UEFA Cup final against Inter, they were known as Casino Salzburg. So it's common for clubs to change their names, and fans don't get too angry with that. But then Red Bull, the news came out that Red Bull didn't want to be a sponsor. They wanted to buy the whole club and change the whole club. So they changed their logo, they changed their colors, they changed their kit, their crest, their everything. Even their stadium name is called the Red Bull Arena now. So people were not happy with that. They wanted some level of the original club being there, and Red Bull basically said no. Their former colors were purple and white. So the Austria Salzburg fans, the original Austria Salzburg fans said that we want our kits to be purple. But obviously, Dietrich Markranstädt said, no, we're going to make it, our colors, white and red, to make it a Red Bull club. And people got really offended when Dietrich Markranstädt said that, when Red Bull offered that they'll make the goalkeeper kits for away games purple to keep some level of the original club there. And that made people really angry. And as a result, they made a film called SV Austria Salzburg 2006. So, they got a fair bit of backlash in their home country, which really angered people. With regards to Leipzig, I would say that in Germany itself, they caused a lot of controversy because they duped or got around the 50+1 rule in a very unsavory manner. Obviously, the 50+1 rule may seem complicated, so I'll provide a little bit of explanation on it. It shields clubs from the hands of from external investment. So obviously, when German clubs are started off, they are when they were founded in the 1900s, they were founded as clubs. People founded it because it was suitable to their hobbies. So each time if you look at a German club's name, you will find that they have E.V behind it. That means that they become registered organizations. So they were basically owned by fans or members of the club. So, but in 1998, the rules changed, and clubs were now allowed to have they were allowed to outsource investment, and they were allowed to become basically the ownership rules changed. So that's when the 50+1 rule came in, which meant that the original club, the fans, the members, they must own 50% of the voting rights plus one share, hence 50+1, and the rest goes to external investment. Now, some clubs are exempt from that rule, like Bayer Leverkusen or Wolfsburg. Bayer Leverkusen, they've been involved with biopharmaceutical companies since 1904. Wolfsburg with Volkswagen since 1945. So if an external party has been involved with the club for more than 20 years, you are allowed to be exempt from the rule. Now, Leipzig are not exempt from the rule because because they don't break the law. basically what happens is they have voting members and they have rights holders, but they only have 19 of them, and they're only people who are either employed by or working with Red Bull. So, so basically they're not breaking the law, but they are finding a way to go around it, which angers people. So that was the main reason for the backlash they got when they moved up to the Bundesliga. And hope that isn't too complicated, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the on the branding purpose on the changing the name, because besides branding purpose, there what is the other reason that RB changed their club name? Like example, like usually they change the logos. Like in Cardiff City, they put a small dragon, and recently Juventus changed their club logo to a massive to a J logo.
Yep.
Why actually can't they maintain the original name prior of the purchase of the club? Is there any specific beside branding?
I would say that they want to make their identity clear. There is no specific reason that they've given out. RB Leipzig, the full name is not Red Bull Leipzig. It's a very common mistake to call them Red Bull Leipzig. They're actually called Rasenballsport Leipzig, which is a word that means lawn ball sports when it's translated. So if you look at the initials of Rasenballsport, you get RB, so that immediately when you think of RB, you think of Red Bull, right? So they want to create their own identity. And even when you look at the RB Leipzig logo and you compare it with the RB Salzburg logo or the New York logo, you find out that the logo is slightly different. They don't have the yellow color sun on the Red Bull logo in the Leipzig logo. So, they try as much as possible to make their identity clear. And that's the reason they changed the name and the crest, the colors and everything. When Leipzig, the reason the fans around Germany hate them so much is because they almost change identities. It doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel original. If you look at Leipzig itself, the city, they have three primary clubs, which is obviously RB Leipzig, the most popular one, and have Chemie Leipzig and Lok Leipzig. Now, Chemie and Lok Leipzig are two clubs that play in the lower divisions of German football. Now, Chemie Leipzig, their main colors are green and white, which is the colors of Saxony, the region they're based in, the state. And Lok Leipzig have blue and yellow as their colors, which is the colors of Leipzig, the city. But Red Bull, as if you look at them, they have the colors of white and red, which is related to Red Bull and their branding. So that's what angers people so much. They feel unoriginal, inauthentic, and people are very angry to have them.
Okay, all right. So since talking about people, so it's a real strange phenomenon, for a club that is having a big success, right? Winning stuff, winning games and all that. But overall, the people are not very happy, and the club being portrayed in negativity almost everywhere. When all tradition had been put aside for commercial gain. So what about the fan? Can you explain to us who are these typical fans of these RB franchises? Like because are there the people who were supporting the club before that, or a new bunch of guys? I'm not sure. Maybe you can shed some light on the fans.
Yeah, sure. Now, you could say the typical fans of the club are the locals mostly. With regards to Leipzig, at least that's the case, because when RB Leipzig was formed, they took the license of this small fifth division team called SSV Markranstädt. Now, Markranstädt were a small club. Nobody really knew they existed. They were just there to make up the numbers, basically. They had around 200-300 fans attending their games each time around. And Leipzig, Red Bull obviously took the license. They bought the license from them, and they became, a Bundesliga club in a short amount of time. So the thing about Leipzig was that it becomes more of a cultural thing, because the former East Germany, football clubs from there haven't been very successful. When Leipzig were formed in 2009, there wasn't much success going towards the eastern side. Most of the successful clubs were on the west, the Bayern Munichs, the Borussia Dortmunds, the et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So the people of the eastern side of the country wanted a team they could support, and wanted a team that was consistent, one they could get behind. Other clubs like, say, Hertha or
Berlin.
Yeah, they weren't very successful, and they're mostly on the east. There are a few other clubs as well that played in the Bundesliga from the east, but they didn't really lived there for long. They got relegated almost instantly, or had a very short spell in the Bundesliga. So that was one thing that people got attracted to, that East Germany finally had a club that could firstly play in the Bundesliga, and secondly they could play top level football with top level players and a top level manager. So that's how they got people attracted to it. And the local authorities are happy to have them as well, because now that they're a Bundesliga club and they're a Champions League club, fans from abroad travel, or fans from the Munichs and the Dortmunds come in. So the local ministers are very happy to see that local businesses are being supported. So, within Leipzig itself, they're happy to have them. Most of them are happy to have them. Some of them are obviously disappointed, but around Germany, you wouldn't find a Leipzig fan in Dortmund. You wouldn't find a Leipzig fan in Stuttgart or something like that. They support their own local clubs.
Mm-hmm.
With regards to Salzburg in Austria, initially there was some anger. Obviously, they made the Phoenix Club and all that. People, stopped supporting Red Bull Salzburg, but eventually they got on board. Some of them got on board. Obviously, the local fans are pretty happy to have them on and all that. It's a similar story. I spoke to a Salzburg fan for my book, and one of them told me that they're happy to support Red Bull Salzburg because Dietrich Mateschitz is, as I said, a local man. He's a Salzburg native, and he lives in Salzburg. And most importantly, he pays his taxes in Salzburg. He's a billionaire. He pays around 200, 350 million each year in taxes. He could easily find a tax haven in Switzerland or live somewhere else and pay less amount of taxes. But he doesn't do that. He lives in Salzburg and he invests in the local city. So people are happy to see him there and have the club around. And obviously the success that they've had, they've won almost every league title. They won, I think, 12 league titles since Red Bull came in. They won almost every domestic cup since Red Bull came in. They've played in the Europa League. They reached the semi-finals of the Europa League. They played in the Champions League this season for the first time, surprisingly. So, they are seeing top-level players and top-level talent. And when you see players like Erling Haaland or Takumi Minamino playing for you in your stadium, you're happy to see that, right? You're happy to see top-level players playing at your club. So, fans are warm to it there. Over in New York, it's a similar story. They were called the Metro Stars before, as I said, and now they're called Red Bull New York, the New York Red Bulls. And they've seen some top-level players as well. Obviously, Thierry Henry, Juan Pablo Angel, Bradley Wright Phillips have all played for New York. And also that in New York, they invest very heavily in the youth sector of their club. They have a very refined youth academy and a youth system. Players as young as 5 or 6 years old join and they become players at New York. Tyler Adams, he started playing for New York Red Bulls when he was about 10 or 11 years old. He progressed through the academy and played for the first team, and now he plays at RB Leipzig. So people are happy to see talent like that. So it's that sort of thing that they almost warm to the fans in the local cities by providing the best talent or the best players, and sometimes they win trophies. Even in Brazil with Bragantino, who are a very historic club, they have about 70, 80 years of history. So even they were struggling with money and all that, and Red Bull came and saved them. So some people are happy to see them. And while most of the external fans living in other cities or other towns may be disappointed and angry, I think most of the local fans are pretty pleased to have them around.
Okay. So, let's move on to Ralf Rangnick, right? So, why is he known as the benchmark of being a sporting director? What makes him different from other sporting directors out there, in terms of his style, his methodology, or his process?
Ralf Rangnick is one of my heroes personally. He's, I feel, one of the smartest men in modern football. And I'd say that he's a coach first and then a sporting director. So even if he does coaching, or even if he's a sporting director or has any senior role at a club, he does a really incredible job. And it's great to watch his clubs. His story starts all the way back in the 1990s. He was one of the first proponents of changing the German way of football. Obviously, you guys would know more than me because you're older. You would know that Germany is famous with the sweeper system, or was famous with the sweeper system.
The sweeper, the libero.
Libero, yep. So obviously, they were happy to have that, and they thought that they could play like that forever almost. And I read a
until
book.
they ran out of Matos and Semer, and after that,
Yeah, that's the thing. I read a
yeah.
book in my research for my book that Helmut Grosch, who is one of Germany's most famous academy coaches, said that the biggest problem for German football was that they won the World Cup in 1990, which sounds odd because obviously the World Cup is the biggest prize in football. But he said it's the biggest problem for Germany because it gave them the invitation that the sweeper system was going to last forever. So Helmut Grosch and Ralf Rangnick were great friends. Almost, Grosch was like Rangnick's mentor. So together they formed this system of aggressive pressing and zonal marking. There's a German word for it. I'm not going to say it because my German is terrible, but there's a German word for it. And that's what their style of play was. That aggressive pressing was combined with zonal marking, and that was the basis of their football. Now, wherever Ralf Rangnick went, he wanted that style of football implemented. He managed this club called SSV It was a very small third division club, and he took them to very high levels. He took them to the second division, and they almost got promoted. And they actually got promoted under his tenure, but he wasn't there to manage them in the Bundesliga because he moved to Stuttgart. But that was his style of football. And, in 1998, he went on this show called ZDF Sports Studio, which is like the match of the day of German football, of Germany.
Okay.
Over there, he explained his style of football, his coaching philosophy. And people got really angry after that because they were like, Ralf Rangnick, he's a second division manager. Who is he to challenge, Franz Beckenbauer, the higher ups of German football who have, been successful with the sweeper system. So that's what really angered people. But it showed a lot of his credibility and a lot of his philosophies. It's there. You can watch the video on YouTube. It's a very fascinating video. It's in German, but there are subtitles available. So basically that put him on the map almost. It gave him his popularity. So while everyone in Germany was still following the sweeper system, still going in the traditional methods, Ralf Rangnick was a modern genius. He's considered the father of modern German football in a way. So, and at the time, as I said before, most people were interested in the sweeper system. Other clubs like Mainz, for example, under this manager called Wolfgang Frank, they were playing with the aggressive pressing style similar to Ralf Rangnick, and they enjoyed considerable success. Obviously, they had a player with them called Jurgen Klopp. I think you must have heard of him.
Yeah.
So the attitudes towards football were changing at the time, and Ralf Rangnick was at the forefront of that. At Euro 2004, Germany failed. I think they got out of the group stages. They got knocked out of the group stages. That was a wake-up call for them. Even when they reached the World Cup final in 2002, you could say that Germany were arguably the worst ever team to reach the World Cup final because they had such a simple run and they played really boring football. So,
and Oliver can't save them, I think.
Yep, and Oliver Kahn was probably the only reason they got there. They had a few young players, but it was mostly a terrible run for them, and they're probably the worst ever World Cup finalists. So, that was fortunate for Ralf Rangnick's philosophy as well. And as that was happening, he was progressing through his career. Now, the most significant thing about Ralf Rangnick is that he wants things done in a certain way, in a way that he designs. Right? He's a man of his own style. He wants things done the way he imagines it, right? And he's unafraid to leave clubs if they don't follow his philosophy, if they don't buy into his philosophies. If you look at his career path, you will see that he left club because of disagreements so many times. He managed Schalke, he managed Stuttgart, he managed Hannover 96, and he left them all after disagreements because the management said that they don't want his style, they don't want his power to be too much, and he has a hand in everything. So he wants the team to play in a certain way. He wants the team to be fed in a certain way. He wants the team to eat certain kinds of food. He wants the team to live in certain kinds of hotels, away games. So everything has to be according to his plans. And you can see that whenever he has control, he has been successful. And the first instance of that was with Hoffenheim in 2006. Sorry. So at Hoffenheim, they were owned by Dietmar Hopp, who is the billionaire owner of SAP, the technology company.
Yeah.
He was given the keys to do whatever he wanted there. And Hoffenheim, he took them from the third division to the first division. And in his first season in the Bundesliga, they were challenging for the title against Bayern Munich until the Christmas period. So, that's when people really realize how talented Ralf Rangnick is, that he can take any club from anywhere and make them successful, provided they give him the freedom and the time and the investment. And that essentially gave him the Red Bull job. In 2012, he took over at Red Bull, and from there, their success has been evident. Leipzig at the time were a struggling club. They had the money, but they didn't have the knowledge of how to go into the Bundesliga. Salzburg were winning trophies, but it wasn't sustainable enough because they had older players. They were very expensive, and they were all almost retiring, and they were they had careers in the past, but not anymore. So he streamlined the philosophy. He said that I want a specific youth system. I want a specific style of play. If you look at all of the Red Bull clubs, whether it's New York or Leipzig or Salzburg or anyone else, you will see that they play with verticality, they play with quick transitions, they play aggressively, they press very highly, they press smartly. So it's that sort of thing. He wants control over things, and that's why he is so successful. And also when it comes to players, that he understands their needs. So it's that sort of thing. It's a combination of a lot of factors, but in the end, Ralf Rangnick is one of the most smartest people in football at the moment.
Okay, and would you consider him like a flexible or adaptable person? Because you mentioned that he's very into his style and his methods and all that, and if people don't, refusing to change, or if there's any challenge towards it, but what about adaptability or changing?
So with Ralf Rangnick, I think there is an element of flexibility and adaptability to his style. He wants the style of play with each coach. He wants the philosophy to be the same, but the coaches have the freedom to select their own formation, their own players, their own elements within the game. So, if you compare Ralf Rangnick's team from 2019, when he was the head coach of Leipzig, to the team that Julian Nagelsmann has now, you will notice certain differences. If you look at the stats, you will see that they perhaps run lesser, or the positions on the pitch are significantly different. But you will also notice that the philosophy is very identical. They still want teams to press. They still want teams to play with a bit of speed. So I would say that there's a certain element of adaptability to him, as long as the philosophy remains the same. When he's likely to move to Milan next season, and you will see a lot of changes with Rangnick itself, because this is his first time coaching outside of Germany. He played amateur football in England with his university, I believe, several decades ago. So this is his first role outside of Germany, and Italian football is a different style of football altogether. So it'll be interesting to see how he does.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, something really interesting to look forward to. Milan really needs it now. Yeah.
They do need him, and they need a sort of person to change the whole club, because it's been falling for so long.
Yep, exactly. Bringing back the good old days of AC Milan. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, because Ralf might need to make sure AC Milan back in the competitive, at least to give fight to Juventus.
Yep.
But moving on, talking about the investment, when Manchester City was bought over by this Arab, the Qatari, I think basically they spent a lot of money on the players, and I think very less development during the early stage. But I think for RB it's kind of different, because I think Ralf, he invested more on player. I think the one thing mentioned is the club is not willing to pay enormous amount of money for the football star, but instead find and develop the stars of tomorrow. Basically, what kind of scouting system, or he uses to develop young players? Because one of the things he did mention also is he want to find the players in each location. Maybe you can more detail us on this. What actually is the direction we're going?
Yeah, so I spoke about this a lot in my book. As you said, he wants to sign players only between the ages of 17 and 23 years old, and that's true. So in 2017, he spoke at the International Trainer Congress in Germany, which is this event for coaches to come on and speak about their experiences and talk about what they do and why they do it in that way. It's like a event that's very similar to TED, but it's only for coaches. So over there, he spoke about why they only focus on young players, and he gave out this 9-point theory. Now, some of the points from that were that young players have lesser injury problems. They're more motivated than older players. That they have greater desire to learn, and the market value, the potential they have in the future is very high when they sell them. Erling Haaland's example. So those are just 4 reasons out of 9 reasons as to why they focus on younger players. So it's a very unique philosophy, and he does a lot to support it. Salzburg have one of the best academies in Europe. They won the UEFA Youth League in 2017. Similarly, in New York, as I mentioned, the grassroots program starts as young as when the children are 7 or 8 years old. So, yeah, that's what they focus on. I even spoke to Ernst Tanner for the book, who was the academy director for Salzburg, and he explained this in much more depth.
Okay.
And he explained the points that Ranić made earlier. So, you know, that's how it is with the club. He wants that certain philosophy to be at all clubs and wherever he goes. I think he'll do a similar thing at Milan next summer, where they focus only on young players. If you look at some of the transfer rumors, you will see that they're mostly targeting younger players, Dominic Szoboszlai from Salzburg and players like that. So I think that is a way forward for him, because he sees greater potential in the future than he does. He wants to build a club for the next 20, 25 years, or the next 1 season or 2 seasons. So that's what makes them so unique. And you mentioned earlier that their scouting network is so far reaching. It reaches countries in Africa, countries in South America. So it's they have lots of good connections there, and they have a good scouting network. When Ralph Rangnick joined in 2012, he bought Gerard Houllier with him. Gerard Houllier was the former Liverpool and Aston Villa boss. So obviously they have good connections in every country they possibly can. In Africa, they have good connections with countries like Zambia and Mali. They have good connections in France, a good scouting network, because France is obviously so talented. So that's what they try to do. They have good people in charge everywhere, and they have good coaches in every club, and they have a refined, very consistent, very thorough system. So that's what makes them so successful.
Okay. Lots of interesting stuff about this book, and I'm really looking forward to read it myself. But for the avid football reader out there, Karan, what will be the one reason do you think that he or she needs to go out and get this book? What would be that selling point that you will drive this book?
I would say that Red Bull have, because as I mentioned earlier, Red Bull have been so 50-50 almost. Half the people hate them. They hate everything they do. They don't want anything to do with them. If they're on the TV, if they're the last team on the planet to watch, they will not watch them in Germany. So that's one thing. But then on the flip side, you can see that people are interested in them. And I have a similar story. I don't, as I said, I don't endorse Red Bull's existence in football and the way they do things. But if they are on TV, I will watch them because they're that good. So if people want to learn about Red Bull and learn about their operations in football, I think it's a good book to buy. You get to learn about the key people, obviously Ralf Rangnick, Julian Nagelsmann, Jesse Marsch, Paul Mitchell, who left for Monaco sadly yesterday. So it could be helpful for coaches also in a way, aspiring coaches at least. I think I tried my best to explain a bit of the philosophies that the group employs. So it could interest several groups of people.
Okay, I'm definitely. I can tell you, it's gonna probably interest some of our listeners out there, because Red Bull is a team that definitely has been in the conversation almost in every football fan around the world, to the point that even as much as they try to change the RB to something else, people will still go back to Red Bull. It's a very strong brand by existence. So when can we expect the book to be out? And are you working on any other books in the pipeline?
The Red Bull book is going to be out in November this year, 2020. It's already up for pre-order on Amazon and Waterston. So, if you order it now, you will get it by November, hopefully November 9th. So that's about 5 months from now. So yeah, a bit of time to wait. And as for the other books, I would say that I am interested. Obviously, I would want to write more books, and it's a fun experience. It's a different challenge compared to writing online, because writing online it's almost time sensitive in a way. When you write a book, you want it to be timeless. You want it to be able to be read at any point in time. So you have to write in a different way. It's a good challenge to take on. It's a really fun experience, and I obviously enjoyed it very much. I was speaking to people all over the world and learning their experiences and learning what they do and how they do it and whatever. So it was a nice thing to be working on, and I would be interested in a future book, but not right now. I want to see how the Red Bull book performs in the first place and see how the response to it is. And maybe in the future, I if it's successful, I definitely would consider doing a second book.
Okay. And of course, you be sure to find the link of that particular book, which is available in Amazon, right? So yeah. So I mean, we will put up the link in our post so that people who come to our websites or come to our podcast and all that will be able to find that link and reach out to you as well. Okay. I mean, it's been an interesting conversation talking about Red Bull. I think if Karan wanted to, he can go on forever about it, right? But okay. Any last question, guys?
Certainly, it's been a great experience talking to you, Karan. Good luck in your new venture, and hope everything turns out well. And we're looking forward for your new book in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good to be on. Very happy to talk. It's the first podcast I'm talking on the book about. So,
Yep, Karan. So thank you, again for joining us here, and we hope this book soars like a Red Bull. So
yeah.
it all goes well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Firstly, I'm not a very big fan of Red Bull as a drink. It's not like I've only had one can my whole life, and I never liked it. So
Okay.
Yeah, again, even the drink itself is either you love it or you hate it. Just like all its football team, right?
yeah, exactly. And I had my first drink like 6 months ago before I started writing the book, and I didn't like it at all. So
Okay.
Maybe if you add it with a bit of vodka, you might like it.
I know. I don't believe.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, Karan, as you mentioned, writing a book is a different kind of experience. So hopefully, through that book, you might inspire other avid writers to go out there and make their own book. Maybe it's
Definitely.
yeah.
And
And of course, yeah. Go ahead.
I was inspired by other people to write my book because, it felt like natural progression in a way. I've been writing online for 4 years, and so it's good to take on another challenge and do different things. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, true. Agree. And of course, thank you so much for being in our podcast, and thank you so much for previewing your book with us. I mean, this is the first time people are going to be hearing about your book. And with that said, we will end this episode. And goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much.